Besides the flagship P10, Huawei also brought the P10 Lite to markets, and in this video we'll have a closer look and a comparison to last year's P9 Lite. Well, let's start with the design, because this has really changed. You'll see that especially on the backside. Remind last year's model, the P9 Lite, has had that, plastic backside, just glass around here. And now it's glass completely all over the backside. Way more classy, of course, but way more fingerprints. I guess that's clear also. But compared to the P10, remind that was aluminum unibody, completely different design. Metal is just the frame light on the predecessor here, so it's a completely different design, and especially, like always, as I'm telling you, you have glass on the front and on the back side, so you double the chance to break if you drop your phone, if it just falls and not exactly here on the edge. So it's always a risk, but people like it, so here we are. Again, that same fingerprint sensor, you know that camera has changed just a little bit. Here we had 13 megapixels, that's now down to almost 12 megapixels, but the photo diodes, the sensors, the pixels have been bigger now. It's now 1.25 micrometers instead of 1.12, so chances are good that it's better in low light situations. We will have to test that, of course. Like always, that test is appearing on my website as text. That's mobiwatch.net. Like always, as soon as possible. Let's come to the front, and especially, of course, let me go to a white background here so that you can see that the display is really exactly the same. From the size, that's 5.2 inch still, 132 millimeters. And also the resolution 1080 by 1920 pixels. So you also have the exactly the very same pixel density, sharpness. That's 424 ppi, or 278 pixels per square millimeter. That's just 1% above the average, but absolutely okay for that price. But even more important, look at these tiny texts here that have been now way bigger, broader, brighter, more bold. So way better, in my opinion, to read, especially for those of you who might wear glasses or miss them sometimes. So this one is, in my opinion, at least nevertheless, way better to read. Front camera is still 8 megapixels, video in full HD. On the back side also, so no 4K or Ultra HD video recording here still, but who needs some kind of this, especially in this price range here. We're talking, by the way, about €349 recommended retail price. Street price is now down a little bit below €300 here in Germany, Europe, including tax 19% and without any contract, and of course may vary depending on your country. Sure. Under the hood, it's a different processor, of course. The new Kirin 658 instead of 650. It's still 8 cores, and still Cortex A53, but now a little bit higher clock rate, 2.4 and 1.7 instead of 2.0 and 1.7, a little bit higher. It's the very same graphics module, Mali T830 with 2 graphic cores, but now 4 instead of 3 GB of RAM, of working memory. So I presume, of course, I will have to test that also, but my guess will be it's a little bit better, but no gigantic step ahead that it's now premium class, because of that. For that we have Huawei has the P9, so they don't want to have competition inside the same range, I guess. So it will be okay, but not one of the best ones, my guess at least. Wait for the final review. We have double the memory, internal memory. Now it's 32 instead of 16, leaving net 18.1 gigabyte. Here it has been 7.9, let's say 8, now 18. So way better here. You almost needed in all circumstances a micro SD card. Here you maybe be lucky if you do not have too many, for example, video data or something like that. But of course, you have that slot here. You can have micro SD cards up to 256 gigabyte, by the way, officially. And you have 2 versions in most markets, I've been told, especially Germany, Europe. I know here definitely We have single SIM version and a dual SIM version that's not significantly more expensive. So if you want to have inserted two nano SIM cards, so be aware that you really buy the dual SIM version, that it's really explicitly said that it's a P10 Lite in dual SIM version. The 4G speed is now, instead of 150, 300 megabits per second, but you all know that it's depending on your network, on your location, how many people are in your network, if your data plan is 300 megabits. So I'm not quite sure if you really will feel that double speed really in everyday life, but what you will feel definitely is that it's now Wi-Fi N 5 gigahertz and especially Wi-Fi AC. So you have higher data rates, and especially if you are in lots of hotspots. So these are in 2.4 gigahertz, often overcrowded, and it's slow. So 5 gigahertz and Wi-Fi AC is way better. That's definitely for me a plus. What I also wanted to show you is that you now, here it's Android 7.0, here you have the update, but especially Emotion UI 5.1. I left on that one here. You have that update to 5.0 here, but I left explicitly 4.1 to show you some of the differences. Just shortly, I showed you already on other or previous Huawei devices. But just have a look, for example, at this one here. The icons here now are a little bit tinier, but you have completely all. You do not have to scroll through different pages. You do not have these two tabs over here. So it's a little bit more like the native Android, and it's a little bit better here, a little bit more overview, but nevertheless no big chances in features or something, just especially this one. And by the way, some of you asked me to show if it's possible to have change the on-screen navigation here. Yes, it is. First of all, you can have that drawer that you will have, or let me show you like this one, by the way. It's just some seconds more, and I hope so at least. Here we are. See, now you have that app icon here for the app drawer, app launcher, and you have an alphabetical list now here. Here it's just on the home screens like that, for example, if you wanted. And the other thing I wanted to show you is with the navigation key that you can change, for example, left or back from the left to the right side if you're coming from Samsung, for example, and need it here because you're used to it, but you cannot fade out completely like for several years now with the Huawei devices. Unfortunately, this is not possible anymore. Yeah, what else I wanted to show you is that you now have that micro USB type B, not the new type C. So the very same like on this one here. What's really astonishing for me, because the P10 has USB-C, and even, for example, the Nova. Remember last year's IFA in autumn? I showed you that's cheap and has already USB-C. So I do not know why Huawei is building in still the old USB type B or micro USB slot here. The pro is that you can use your old accessory. For example, if you have chargers or something, you can use it without any adapter. On the other hand, you know, these cables, it's a little bit tricky here. You cannot move them in both ways into, so I find USB-C really the coming standard, or almost their standard, and especially way more comfortable. So you should know that's not the case here, just in the P10. Yeah, that's enough, or I hope so at least, for a first impression and comparison between the P10 Lite and the P9 Lite. More information in the final review, like I already told you, coming always as text on my website. That's mobiwatch.net as soon as possible. Thanks for watching this video, and maybe you are so kind to rate this video, and maybe you even leave a sub and your opinion in the comments. Thanks for that in advance. Take care and bye.